So this actually might be an even crazier question that I want to throw out to you, but it was something that was sparked with Jake and I in the beginning portions of the show. So obviously the big news for the Denver Broncos that came out yesterday is they finally got the contract signed, sealed, and delivered for rookie cornerback Jahdae Barron. Now, obviously, all of Broncos country for the most part is high on Jahdae Barron, Jim Thorpe Award winner. You pair him next to Patrick Surtain, reigning defending defensive player of the year. We were thinking about it. Is there a chance if Jahdae Barron lives up to expectations? Let's say Jahdae Barron is 80%, 90% as good as Patrick Surtain is, right? You got two cornerbacks on an island. Could this potentially be the best cornerback duo, not just for the Broncos, but potentially in NFL history if Jahdae Barron hits the way we think he could?
Well, I don't know about history. I mean, I'd have to go through the history. I haven't thought about that, but like in Broncos history, yeah. And if Jahdae Barron is all that, and I went back after they drafted him and really looked at him on tape. Obviously, the guy's got a skill set. And the biggest thing I always look at with corners is, hey, man, if we get into a formation where we force you, so a lot of times in NFL offense or parlance, we'll get into a two tight end formation on one side of the formation, whether you call that west or whether you call that wing or whatever you call that. So two tight ends, thinking one on the line of scrimmage, one just slightly behind him. And then we flip our wide receivers to the other side. That's a slot formation, okay? And if your corners don't go over, means you're in a zone coverage. Well, what does that do to the defense? It makes that corner have to get involved in the run game. He has got to be the alleyway defender. And so we'll do on offense all the time. We'll do this. We'll flip over if we want to attack a corner in the run game. And it's always a telltale sign. Are you interested in making this tackle? I was talking to Eric Mangini. You'll love this. Like Eric Mangini, when he was the head coach, I don't know if he was at Cleveland. He wouldn't tell me Cleveland or the Jets. But he had one of his players come to him that was a corner. And the corner said to him, hey, listen, coach, I got 50 tackles in me this year. That's all I'm going to give you. Just 50. And after 50, I just refuse to tackle anybody. So that's my limit, 50. And he's like, oh, really? That's where we are right now. You got the 50 tackles. And, and it's funny because, like, the dude was dead serious. He goes, yeah, how do you feel about never playing again? How does that sit with you, right? But, like, one thing you saw on film with Barron is he's a willing participant. Like he will be tested in that vein. So if you got two guys that can flat cover, and now you've got, let's not forget about what Riley Moss did last year because he was really good. You have got to have multiple corners in any defense nowadays to have success. And remember, when we lost Moss in that game against Cleveland, that's when Jerry Jeudy went for 235. So busted coverages, lack of, being able to run with people, all those different things. So yeah, if you have two legitimate stud corners, and I'll just give you one more little tidbit of information to think about. If you go back in the day when two things happened. When the New England Patriots picked up both Aqib Talib and then, at a different time, they picked up Revis Island. And one of the things they did with Revis Island was they put Revis on the number 2 receiver. And he completely shut the number 2 receiver down. And then they would double team the opposite side. And then, and so then we roll coverage over the safety over there and what they call cloud the coverage. So the corner would, jam the guy, be underneath any route, and a safety would be over the top, right? So you're effectively double teaming that guy. So they looked at, hey, let's just shut out the number 2 guy. And then let's double team the number 1 guy. And it gives you options when you have that. And then when they had Aqib Talib, if you remember, it's when Jimmy Graham was tearing people up at the tight end position. He'd slip, he would line up outside and do all those different things. That's when they started lining Aqib Talib because he's tall and he's physical, although he's skinny, but he's a tall, physical guy. They started lining up Aqib Talib over the tight end in those situations, and he shut people down from a passing standpoint. So it just gives you so much defensive versatility that you can work with.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting conversation, and I think it's just because of the prospect of Jahdae Barron, right? Somebody that nobody thought would fall to the Broncos in the first round. You already have one side of the field locked up in Patrick Surtain. That it's like it's not even just the prospect of pairing him with Surtain on the other side of the field. It's knowing how hungry and aggressive the Broncos defensive line is. It's knowing what a guy like Dre Greenlaw, assuming he can stay healthy, is going to add, being able to be a sideline linebacker, maybe the first in Stanley Trevathan, knowing where they're at in the safety room. I'm just sitting back and saying, okay, if Jahdae Barron is as good as we think he is, we know what Pat Surtain is, we know what the pass rush is, we know they made upgrades at linebacker. Like, how are teams supposed to attack this Denver Broncos defense?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, what you try to get into, you try to run the ball, you try to slow them down, you try to, you try to create your play action stuff. That's what you're going to try to do, which is totally understandable. It's what you're trying to do is say, hey man, let's slow this game down. Let's let's muddy the waters, so to speak. Let's play a physical style. Let's not let these guys get off on us. It goes back to the same things we did all the time. Hey, man, we want to run the ball. Like when I was playing with the Broncos, we want to run the ball. We want to do these things so we can set up our play action. And so that when we want to pass, like you want to be successful as an offense, pass when you want to pass, not when you have to pass. And if a defense can put you in a position to pass because you have to pass, you're screwed. Every guy that rotates on that defensive line is a better athlete than the guys blocking them. And so you just can't live. You can't survive. You can't do that. One of the reasons I think you see this kind of run game come full circle here in the NFL with guys like Josh Jacobs and what Saquon Barkley did and what, Derrick Henry did and the cat out there, James Cooks in Buffalo. And like you look at the way NFL teams are responding. Now, part of that is because you start to understand, hey, man, we got to protect this quarterback. The other part of that is you start to also understand, from the standpoint of what we're doing, hey, defenses are playing us little. Like defenses now, like in my day, man, everybody was a 255-pound linebacker. Right. Like Peppers and you guys probably don't remember a guy by the name of Zach Diassi, but he was about 6 foot 260. Levon Kirkland played middle linebacker. He was 285. Oof. He was 6'2", 285.
Yeah,
like these guys were run stuffing downhill. Just come at you dudes. And those guys don't exist in the NFL anymore. Now every linebacker, like the bigger linebackers are about 220, 225. And they can run like deer, they just can flat run. And so ultimately what you try to do now and what teams are doing is going, okay, that's how you want to play us? Let's get our big people in here and let's just bludgeon you. And if you can do that, right, you slow down the pass rush, you render them ineffective. So, hey, listen, if the Broncos can play from the standpoint of we're going to force you into passing situations, we know you're throwing the ball, they are going to destroy people. That's what they're going to do.
Yeah, we all believe here that the Broncos' strength is their secondary on defense, and that played out last year as well. But one of the things you just mentioned, Stink, that I think is so important that's getting lost in this is when they lost Moss against Cleveland and Judy torched them, and then the defense kind of fell apart late in the season from there, including in that Cincinnati game that Moss was back for, but maybe he was a little hobbled. So it makes sense, even though on paper that the secondary is so good, that with Barron falling to them, that's still kind of strengthening a strength and an essential piece to this defense because they were so good at getting after the quarterback because their secondary was allowing them to play one-on-one last year. And I just think this Barron pick could be a home run in a lot of ways. Yes, I wanted to go sexy. I wanted a wide receiver just like everybody else. But the more I've mulled on it over the last couple months since the draft, Stink, I'm like, you know what? This could be a solution to the problem that a lot of people aren't talking about the Broncos had late last season.
Yeah, I think, to me, I think the biggest thing is, when you talk wide receivers, I think what you see from the Broncos and what you see, from a lot of teams that are really understand and built well, and this is a Sean Payton thing as well. Like, go back to Sean's history, man. He's had first-round wide receivers he's drafted. None of them have been
good point.
Like breakout guys. Like Brandon Cooks was not a breakout guy. They took a guy 10 years ago, a decade ago or so in the first round. I can't remember the kid's name.
Yeah, no doubt. The receiver I associate most with them is Marcus Colston, who went in the 7th round.
Yeah, seventh round, and then even Michael Thomas was, I think, a second round guy who was unbelievable. And so like to me, it's the most overvalued, overrated position in football, wide receiver. And so like I'm
Spoken like a true
100%.
lineman.
Yeah, but I'm 100%. I'm 100% with you guys. Like that's a sexy fantasy football, and if your GM is a fantasy football player, then yeah, that's gonna happen. And occasionally, you get like what tends to I think what tends to kind of just skew people's opinions is you get Jefferson, you get Jamar Chase, you get a couple of those guys, and you're like, man. Those guys are unicorns, right? There's only a couple of those guys. And so ultimately, I think from a value proposition standpoint, Barron brings so much more value and so much more versatility to what you're doing, especially when you're a competent offensive coach. And Sean Payton is more than competent. That dude, and I hate putting football and genius together because they're mutually exclusive events. But when it comes to understanding offense, understanding personnel groupings, understanding formations, understanding how to get guys favorable matchups, there isn't anybody better in the National Football League than Sean Payton. There just isn't. And you talk, we could sit here and criticize and say, oh, he's not great or whatever. You can nitpick and say, well, it's too much this or too much, whatever it is. I'm telling you, inside NFL circles, when I talk to head coaches around the league and defensive coordinators around the league, Sean Payton's name is spoken with reverence when it comes to his understanding of offense. It just is.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think the draft of Jahdae Barron, the pick, was a great one. We'll see how it shakes out. Can Jahdae Barron and Pat Surtain be Lester Hayes and Mike Haynes? I don't know. Can they be Mel Blount and JT Thomas? I don't know. But point being, if things go the right way, and it's hard to directly compare this unit to the previous unit, but I think back to Aqib Talib and I think back to Chris Harris Jr., and I think you can remake that dynamic a little bit. What's old is new again, potentially, with the Denver Broncos in their quarterback room.
Bo Fly Zone?
Bo Fly Zone.
How about
Look at
that?
you, Mr. Jake Shapiro. That's a good one.